Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week series, then you might know that for the last couple of years, we've done a recurring series called Dumbest Criminals. In these compilation videos, we take a look at some of the dumbest criminals and crime stories that we've covered so far in a given year on Crimes of the Week. While we're not quite halfway through the year yet, since our video editor is on vacation this week, we decided now would be a perfect time to drop our second quarterly installment of the year. Be sure to look out for another one of these videos near the end of the week that will be covering cases exclusively from our Crimes of the Week International series. One thing to keep in mind is that these segments have not been edited since they appeared in their respective lists, so references to specific days of the week as well as other small details may no longer apply. Also, we're bringing back this series by popular demand, so be sure to let us know in the comments section below if this is still something you enjoy. With that out of the way, let's get to the video.
Authorities in the city of Newark, Delaware say that a 22-year-old local man is in custody and facing charges after he unsuccessfully tried to carjack two people this week, one of whom was an off-duty police officer. According to reports, the incident began at around 8:40 p.m. on April 4th, when officers from the Newark Police Department received a call about an attempted carjacking on East Main Street. When they arrived at the scene, the male victim told them that he had been approached by an unknown man who had opened his car door and told him to get out. The man refused, leading to a short physical altercation during which the victim was able to push the suspect out of the vehicle and lock his doors. As police were taking the victim's statement, a second call came in about another attempted carjacking further down the same road. This time, things had gone even worse for the suspect. Unbeknownst to him, the victim he had chosen was an off-duty Newark police officer. When the suspect opened the car door and the officer identified himself, he turned around and ran. He didn't make it very far. The officer chased after him and was able to place him under arrest with the help of other officers who had responded to the first crime scene. The suspect was later identified as 22-year-old Mark Tannen, and the first victim was able to confirm that he was the same person who had tried to carjack him as well. Tannen has now been charged with 2 counts of second-degree attempted robbery.
Authorities in Brevard County, Florida say that a 39-year-old man is facing charges this week following a strange incident in which he was apparently denied a second turn at a local karaoke bar, and he allegedly responded by pulling out a weapon. According to reports, the incident took place at around 2 p.m. on April 2nd at Kennedy's Lamppost Tavern in Cape Canaveral. The mood was fun and exciting that afternoon, with patrons enjoying a bit of friendly karaoke. That was, until 39-year-old Travis Jordan took the stage. While we unfortunately don't know what Jordan chose for his big number, he apparently thought it was good enough that he deserved an encore. So much so that he allegedly refused to leave the stage and pulled out an 18-inch machete when he was told he couldn't have a second turn. Though most people understandably panicked at the sight of the large bladed weapon, a brave female employee at the bar reportedly managed to talk Jordan down and convince him to hand over the machete peacefully. At the same time, the police were called. When officers arrived, they could instantly tell that Jordan was very drunk. His eyes were bloodshot and glassy, he smelled of alcohol, and he was having difficulty standing. When asked about the machete, he reportedly told police that he kept it on him, quote, because he always needs to stay alert. He was taken into custody at the scene and is now facing a charge of breach of peace disorderly conduct. Following Jordan's arrest, Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey released a post on the department's Facebook page joking about the situation. In it he said, quote, unfortunately, Jordan's actions didn't earn him another song on stage, but they did win him a trip to Ivey's Iron Bar Lodge, where every night is open mic night and he can sing any song he wants all night long. Authorities in Pinellas County, Florida say that a 26-year-old New Jersey man might be facing charges this week, but should still consider himself extremely lucky after his reckless actions during a minor traffic stop could have gotten him seriously injured or killed. According to reports, the incident unfolded sometime on the evening of April 2nd, when an officer from the Clearwater Police Department noticed a motorcycle driver, later identified as 26-year-old Caleb Conception, acting suspiciously. When the officer looked a little closer, he almost immediately thought he knew why. Conception's New Jersey license plate was fake. It was a novelty plate that read, "Bend over." When the pair came to a stop at a red light, the officer exited his vehicle and walked over to Conception to speak with him. However, as soon as Conception spotted him, he started his bike back up again. He ignored the officer's shouts to stop and tried to speed through the intersection against the red light, attempting to dodge other motorists in the process. However, he was not successful and ended up crashing moments later. While Conception had to be taken to the hospital following the incident, all things considered, he was relatively uninjured. He was later charged with a felony fleeing count for high-speed/wanton disregard when trying to elude cops. The 26-year-old is apparently also wanted for a parole violation back in New Jersey. Representatives from the FBI say that a 21-year-old Tennessee Air National Guardsman is looking at a decade in prison this week after he recently applied to be a hitman on a parody website, then allegedly agreed to carry out a murder after meeting with a federal agent. The whole thing reportedly started back in February when 21-year-old Josiah Ernesto Garcia came across rentahitman.com. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know that we've discussed this website in the past. But for everyone else, Rent a Hitman was originally created by a group of friends back in 2005 who were trying to create a startup cybersecurity company. When the business didn't pan out, the website's administrator changed it into an elaborate parody page, complete with false testimonials from people who claim to be using hitman services, as well as phony intake forms where prospective hitmen could apply for work. Though it was created as a joke, as the administrator soon found out, there were more than a few people who took it seriously, including Garcia. According to reports, after finding the website, Garcia filled out one of these fake applications boasting of his military skills. He said that he had been in the Air National Guard since July of 2021 and that he had been issued an award for his marksmanship. He allegedly continued to follow up after sending the application, saying in another message, quote, "What can I say? I enjoy doing what I do, so if I can find a job that is similar to it, such as this one, put me in, coach." The website's administrator passed Garcia's information along to the FBI, who arranged to meet with him. During that meeting, the 21-year-old reportedly agreed to murder a person for $5,000. He was given a packet filled with photos and information about the fictional victim and allegedly agreed to carry out the crime for a $2,500 down payment. He also asked if he needed to take pictures of the body for proof that the job was complete. He was arrested shortly after. Garcia is now facing a charge of use of interstate facilities in the commission of murder for hire, and is reportedly looking at up to 10 years if convicted. Authorities in Pearl River County, Mississippi say that a local man is facing a number of charges this week after he chose a rather interesting place to try and conceal his illegal contraband during a traffic stop. The incident took place sometime last week when police pulled over a woman named Olivia Neff in the city of Picayune. She was charged with disregarding a traffic device, but quickly the attention moved to her passenger, Devin Mitchell. According to reports, one of the officers that had stopped the pair had seen Mitchell shove what looked like a gun into a fast food bag. When police took a closer look, they discovered that Mitchell had tried to conceal a handgun inside of a Taco Bell quesadilla. Apparently, this wasn't the only find authorities made either. They also recovered meth, liquid heroin, and associated drug paraphernalia on Mitchell's person. He was arrested and is now facing charges of possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute while in possession of a firearm, possession of a controlled substance, tampering with physical evidence, possession of a weapon by a felon, and possession of paraphernalia.
Authorities in Colorado Springs, Colorado say that an accused drunk driver was busted partly by bad luck this week after he allegedly got behind the wheel while intoxicated, only to hit a police car seconds later. According to reports, the incident took place in the early morning hours of April 22nd in a parking lot located in the 1400 block of North Academy Boulevard. It was about 4:25 a.m., and 19-year-old Esteban Marcelino had allegedly decided to try and drive his Ford F-150 pickup truck, even though he had been drinking. He didn't get very far before he ran into problems. While backing out, he crashed into another vehicle. Not just any vehicle, though. It was a marked cruiser that belonged to the Colorado Springs Police Department. Officers were in the area at the time conducting crime pattern prevention. While the 19-year-old reportedly tried to leave the scene, he was quickly stopped by police and ended up pulling into the exact same parking lot. Marcelino was then arrested for driving under the influence. No injuries were reported as a result of the incident. Authorities in Pinellas County, Florida, say that they received quite the candid statement from a suspected thief this week after he was allegedly caught with stolen property after burglarizing an office building, and he expressed that he was having a fun time. The incident began sometime after midnight on April 17th when 35-year-old Minnesota resident Jordan Mulcahy allegedly broke into an office building in Clearwater, Florida, where he was apparently vacationing at the time. Upon making his way inside through a window he had broken, Mulcahy reportedly helped himself to some bottles of alcohol inside the offices, as well as one of the building's fire extinguishers. This continued for a little while until the 35-year-old was confronted by a member of the building's cleaning crew. Upon realizing that he had been busted, Mulcahy apparently said, "I'm leaving," before walking out the front door with his haul of stolen goods. At the time, he had a trash bag full of alcohol bottles in his right hand and the fire extinguisher in his left. According to reports, this is precisely how police found Mulcahy around 12:30 a.m. when they were called about the burglary. He was arrested at the scene. If there were any remaining doubts that alcohol played a role in the crime, the 35-year-old was apparently quick to clear these up. After being read his rights, he allegedly stated, quote, "It's a fun time to be drunk and to have a fire extinguisher." Unfortunately, Mulcahy never actually told police what he planned to do with the fire extinguisher. In any case, the 35-year-old was subsequently slapped with felony burglary and grand theft charges, as well as misdemeanor petty theft. Apparently, this is far from Mulcahy's first rodeo, so to speak. His rap sheet includes prior convictions for assault, property damage, fleeing police, theft, forgery, fraud, DWI, false imprisonment, assaulting a peace officer, escape from custody, robbery, domestic abuse, and disorderly conduct.
Authorities in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina say that a 24-year-old man is facing felony charges this week after he allegedly threatened to kill his ex-wife while trying to ruin the mood for her and her new boyfriend. According to reports, the incident took place in the early morning hours of April 21st when 24-year-old Alan Riggs started to hear noises coming from one of the bedrooms of the duplex that he shares with his ex-wife, 24-year-old Jolynn Wolfrey. He quickly realized that these were the sounds of his ex and her new boyfriend getting busy, so to speak. While the former husband and wife had chosen to continue to live together in the same house for the past 2 years despite getting divorced, apparently on this particular night things got to be too much for Riggs. He banged on the walls to try and get Jolynn and the boyfriend's attention, but when this failed, he decided to be more direct. That's when he grabbed and allegedly cocked his handgun. When Jolynn came out to grab a glass of water, Riggs reportedly ambushed her with the firearm. He then allegedly told her that she would die if she went upstairs. Jolynn responded by calling the police. When officers arrived, Riggs was apparently playing a game on his cell phone like nothing had happened. When asked about the incident, though, he confessed, saying that he, quote, wanted to ruin the mood for his ex-wife and her boyfriend. He was arrested and is now facing a felony charge of domestic violence. Authorities in Orange County, California say that a 46-year-old man is facing charges this week after he allegedly stole a forklift from a local construction site and went on a dangerous rampage. According to reports, the incident began at around 7 p.m. on April 25th when police received calls about a man operating what appeared to be a stolen forklift in the city of Costa Mesa. The suspect, later identified as 46-year-old Matthew Shore, had allegedly taken the vehicle from a construction site on Rochester Street, getting it out onto the road by crashing through a chain-link fence. After taking a sizable amount of the fence with him, Shore proceeded to drive around on local roads, where he reportedly collided with a car and attempted to ram into pedestrians. Upon managing to shake the fence off of the front of the forklift, authorities say he drove onto the Pacific Coast Highway. Shore reportedly continued for about 3 miles until he stopped at a McDonald's location in Newport Beach. He was apparently arrested after illegally parking the stolen piece of construction equipment right outside of the fast food restaurant while he was waiting for his order of 2 McDoubles. At the time of this recording, police say that the motive behind the bizarre crime is unknown, though they do not believe Shore was under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of his arrest. He is now facing multiple charges, including vehicle theft, burglary, and felony vandalism. Authorities in Volusia County, Florida say that a 20-year-old man is facing numerous charges this week after he allegedly stole a vehicle and crashed it during a police chase, then offered a bizarre excuse for his actions. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the morning of May 10th when officers from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office spotted a stolen SUV being driven in the city of Daytona Beach shores. When police attempted to pull the vehicle over, the driver, later identified as 20-year-old Michael Barr, allegedly took off, leading officers on a short chase before jumping out of the SUV while it was still moving. The vehicle continued until it crashed into a building, and Barr ran from the scene on foot. A short time later, officers were able to locate Barr at a motel on South Atlantic Avenue, where he was placed under arrest. He apparently had a handgun in his possession at the time. The situation grew far stranger, however, when Barr reportedly tried to explain his actions to police. He claimed that the whole thing had happened because he had been ditched by his friends in Miami. Naturally, in his mind, the logical thing to do was to hitchhike to Kissimmee, steal a car, and then drive to Daytona Beach. He said that at the time officers spotted him, he was using the vehicle to search for a Wi-Fi connection. Barr is now facing several charges, including grand theft of a motor vehicle, fleeing or attempting to elude law enforcement, unlawfully carrying a concealed firearm, resisting an officer without violence, driving with a suspended or revoked license, and leaving the scene of a crash with property damage. In a statement, police jokingly mentioned that the 20-year-old will not have a Wi-Fi connection in his jail cell. Representatives from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California say that a YouTuber and former X-Games snowboarder has agreed to plead guilty to federal charges this week after he deliberately crashed a plane to gain views on his channel, then allegedly attempted to cover up the crime by destroying evidence. The incident began on November 24, 2021, when Trevor Daniel Jacob took off on a solo flight in his airplane from Lompoc City Airport. The 29-year-old claimed that he was flying to Mammoth Lakes. However, investigators now say that this was never his intention. Instead, they claim that he planned to eject from the plane midway through the flight and record footage of the resulting crash, as well as himself parachuting to the ground. According to reports, prior to taking off, Jacob mounted several video cameras on different parts of the plane. He also brought a parachute, another camera to take footage of himself with, and a selfie stick. About 35 minutes after takeoff that day, while he was above the Los Padres National Forest near Santa Maria, Jacob made his jump. After parachuting to the ground, he reportedly collected the footage from the plane, which had crashed into an area of dry brush, before hiking out of the forest. Authorities say it wasn't until 2 days later, on November 26th, that Jacob notified the National Transportation Safety Board about the crash. The agency told him that he was responsible for preserving the wreckage so that they could examine it, to which Jacob allegedly agreed. The NTSB launched an investigation that day, while the Federal Aviation Administration launched their own investigation 3 days later. However, in the weeks following the crash, both agencies say that Jacob repeatedly lied to their investigators. He apparently said that he had jumped from his plane because of a full power loss, and stated that the engine had quit and he could not identify any safe landing options. He also claimed that he could not find the place where the plane had crashed. In the meantime, authorities say Jacob actually returned to the site with a helicopter, which he used to airlift the plane wreckage a short distance before loading it onto a truck and taking it to a hangar. It was here that he allegedly destroyed the plane before disposing of the parts in various locations, in what officials say was an intentional bid to obstruct the ongoing federal investigations into the incident. On December 23, 2021, Jacob then posted a video using the footage he had allegedly collected from the wreckage site called "I Crashed My Airplane." The video is still up on YouTube, where it currently has more than 4 million views. We'll include a link in the description below for anyone interested. According to reports, after the NTSB and FAA were able to piece together what had happened, discovering that Jacob had actually orchestrated the entire stunt for YouTube views, he was charged with 1 count of destruction and concealment with the intent to obstruct a federal investigation. The 29-year-old agreed to plead guilty to the charge this week and could now be facing a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. Jacob's pilot license was also revoked in 2022. Authorities in Franklin County, Kansas say that they've now officially seen it all this week after they arrested a man for suspicion of DUI who was dressed like a can of beer. According to reports, the incident began sometime on May 5th when Franklin County deputies pulled over the unidentified driver who was apparently traveling northbound on Interstate 35 just outside the city of Ottawa. When officers approached the man's vehicle, they were surprised by his choice of attire. He was reportedly wearing a costume designed to make him look like a can of Bud Light beer. After running some roadside tests, officers allegedly concluded that the man was intoxicated and arrested him on suspicion of driving under the influence. He was then taken to the local county jail. Understandably, people were quick with jokes when the sheriff's office released a post about the incident to their Facebook page. One person commented, quote, "Is it really under the influence if he is the influencer?" While another asked, "Is that considered an open container?" Only for a third person to chime in responding, "Only if his fly is down." At the time of this recording, the driver has reportedly posted bond and is no longer in custody. For our final story on today's extended list, we are once again heading back to the city of Clearwater, Florida, where a local man apparently found out the hard way this week that you shouldn't masturbate in semi-public spaces, especially if you're carrying a portable Bluetooth speaker with you. The incident took place sometime on the evening of May 7th at the Palms of Clearwater apartment complex. The luxury rental community apparently describes itself as a Mediterranean oasis, though on this particular evening, 51-year-old Christopher Harris apparently treated it like his private oasis. According to reports, police were called after loud moaning sounds were heard coming from the complex's pool. The few residents who went to investigate instantly regretted it. They were allegedly treated to a front row seat of Harris naked from the waist down and pleasuring himself. Ridiculously, the sounds that they had heard were from the porno Harris was watching, which was easily audible to everyone since the 51-year-old had connected his phone to a portable Bluetooth speaker. When officers arrived at the scene, Harris was arrested, later admitting to what had happened. He apparently told police that he does stupid things when he's drunk. Harris was charged with a misdemeanor count of exposure of sexual organs and has since been released from custody. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week series, then you'll know that we've covered our fair share of absurd DUI stories. However, this next one might just be the most ridiculous we've heard yet. Representatives from Colorado's Springfield Police Department say that a man is facing a number of charges this week after he was pulled over for a traffic violation and tried to get out of the situation by blaming his dog. According to reports, the whole thing went down at approximately 11:30 p.m. on May 13th when police spotted a male driver speeding near 7th and Main Street. He was reportedly traveling 53 miles per hour in a 30 zone. When the man was pulled over, however, officers quickly witnessed something unbelievable. They apparently watched in disbelief as the man switched places with his dog, who up until that point had been riding in the front passenger seat. He then got out through the passenger side door and allegedly proceeded to tell police that his dog had been the one driving. Apparently realizing that this ludicrous excuse was not going to work, the man then reportedly tried to take off on foot, though he only made it about 20 yards before being caught and arrested. Police said that to their complete lack of surprise, the unidentified suspect showed signs of being intoxicated. The man was booked into the Baca County Jail, where he was subsequently charged with driving under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs, driving while ability impaired, driving under suspension, speeding 20 to 24 over the speed limit, and resisting arrest. In a Facebook post released by the Springfield Police Department after the incident, police joked that, quote, "The dog does not face any charges and was let go with just a warning." Commenters were also quick to get in on the action, with one person saying, quote, "He was too drunk to use a GPS, so he got a guide dog," and another chiming in, quote, "I wish my dog could drive." The animal is reportedly now in the care of one of the suspect's acquaintances.
Authorities in Williamson County, Illinois, say that a man is facing a felony charge this week following a recent bizarre case in which he allegedly stole a piece of construction equipment in order to catch a flight at a local airport. According to reports, the incident began sometime on May 18th when officers arrived at the Veterans Airport of Southern Illinois. They had been called after someone had reported a suspicious vehicle, more specifically a backhoe, that had been abandoned in the airport's parking lot. A short time later, the vehicle's owner arrived, explaining that the piece of construction equipment had been stolen from a job site near the intersection of Illinois Route 13 and Spillway Road. When police reviewed surveillance footage from the parking lot, they were surprised by what they saw. A man, later identified as Timothy J. Baggett, had been captured driving and parking the backhoe in the lot before walking into the terminal carrying a guitar case. It's now alleged that Baggett stole the vehicle and drove it more than 10 miles in order to catch a flight. I guess he'd never heard of Uber. Anyway, Baggett was arrested and is now facing a felony charge of theft in excess of $10,000. As you might imagine, when Williamson County Police posted about the incident on Facebook, the story generated its fair share of comments. One user stated, quote, "Now that's a redneck," while another commended Baggett's good technique, saying, quote, "He even put the buckets down. Good operator."
In other nightmarish roommate-related crime news, authorities in Louisville, Kentucky say that a 64-year-old man has been arrested and is facing charges this week after he allegedly shot his roommate during an argument that began over freezer food. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the night of May 20th when the suspect, 64-year-old Clifton Williams, discovered that his roommate had eaten the last Hot Pocket out of their freezer. This apparently caused him to fly into a rage, which quickly escalated when Williams started throwing tiles at the victim. In a later interview with police, the roommate said that he first, quote, "attempted to fight back by trying to beat his ass." However, this apparently failed, causing the man instead to try and flee the residence. When he did, Williams allegedly retrieved a handgun. The victim reportedly yelled for him not to shoot, but was ignored, and ended up getting shot in the butt. That's when he ran off to get help. He was treated at a local hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. Williams was arrested several hours later and has now been charged with felony assault. He is currently being held at the Jefferson County Jail in lieu of $7,500 bond. Unfortunately, reports do not mention which flavor of Hot Pocket led to the attack. Authorities in Erie County, Ohio say that a 27-year-old firefighter is somewhat ironically watching his career go up in smoke this week after he was accused of trying to steal less than $100 worth of collectible trading cards. According to reports, the incident began sometime on May 19th when 27-year-old Chase Green paid a visit to a Walmart store in Perkins Township. After taking 3 boxes of Pokemon cards to the self-scan register, Green was observed holding packs of gum over the barcodes, scanning these instead. He then allegedly tried to leave the store, having only paid for the gum. When the 27-year-old was caught, he bizarrely tried to claim that he didn't know you couldn't scan two items together at the same time. He also said that he didn't look at the amount of his purchase before paying. After realizing that police weren't buying his excuses, Green reportedly changed his tune, saying that he would pay for the merchandise. He also inquired if the incident would appear on his record, because he was worried about losing his job. It seems that it was too little too late for Green, however, as he ended up resigning after being placed on administrative leave by his department. He is now facing a misdemeanor theft count. The total value of the Pokemon cards he attempted to steal was just under $86. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.